Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to complete all of the dasha sequences. There's one I left out, and that is Mercury's Maha Dasha. We're going to cover what that means to you. And I know I can't go into every single scenario of everything that's within your chart, but I can cover some very basics that when you go into this dasha, what you can expect in terms of where that planet is in your chart. So let me explain a little bit about what the mahadashas are all about. If you haven't seen my previous videos on the grand cycles, the mahadashas, I covered all of the other planets, leaving Mercury to be the last one. So what is the Maha Dasha? The Maha Dasha is the cycles of your life. It gives you the big picture of when things are all going to unfold in your life according to your chart. So these dashas are based on the nakshatras. Actually, the way that it works is wherever your natal moon is in your birth chart, the nakshatra that your natal moon is in, whatever planet rules that nakshatra will begin your whole life cycle. So there's 27 nakshatras, and each of them are owned or ruled by a planet. So when you discover what nakshatra your moon's in and the planet that rules it, you begin your whole life cycles in that cycle. So they follow in a sequential order, such as first K2, but it depends on where your moon is. But after you start one, there will always be the same order, such as when you're in K2, then Venus, then Sun, then Moon, then Mars, then after Mars comes Rahu, after Rahu comes Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury. That's the pattern that they always will follow. But most importantly, rather than knowing all the orders and the cycles, I want to explain what this could mean for you if you've just entered into your Mercury Mahadasha. Now, Mercury's Mahadasha is 17 years at length. Now, that's the grand cycle. And remember, I always say the grand cycle's the big picture of your life. It's for the whole 17 years, something will be reflected as to the ruling planet Mercury in your chart, where it is. But the sub-cycles that you go through within that 17-year cycle will really break it up and give more meaning and reference. As a matter of fact, the grand cycle is sort of like the whole focus. But then the sub-cycle is what is actually going on in your immediate environment. So there's one that's the big picture, and as I always say, it's like the country you live in, but there's these sub-cycles that break it up and tell you exactly what your experiences are. And of course, the way that these planets are placed in your birth chart gives the results. There's also another technique that I use all the time, is when you look at where the grand cycle is, you count to where the sub-cycle ruler is, and however many signs it goes from the grand cycle gives you a very clear idea of what to expect. Such as, for example, if you're in the grand cycle of Mercury and the sub-cycle is Venus, and Venus goes to the 7th house from your Mercury opposite, it will bring relationships because of the placement of the sub-cycle ruler from the grand cycle ruler. If you go into a Venus sub-cycle and Venus is 4 placements from where, well, I guess you can't use Venus. Venus and Mercury never get that far apart. But let's talk about, what if you're in a Mars sub-cycle, Mercury, Mars. And Mars is 4 houses signs from Mercury. So if you count starting from where your Mercury is, and this is regardless from what house it's even placed, houses they are placed in. So if you have Mars 1, 2, 3, 4 from Mercury, then that's a time that you're going to move, regardless of what houses they're even in. But to look at what houses these planets are in is what really gives it some specific, deep meanings. So I'm going to take you through the whole cycle of if you have your Mercury placed in a certain house and you just enter into Mercury's Maha Dasha. Now remember, I'm being very, very general because this can take you really into some deep, deep, deep grounds looking at all of this. So, and I want to remind everyone, if you are really interested in learning the deeper aspects of all of this, check out my university website, which is universityofvedicastrology.com, because what I'm able to do here is really kind of a surface level compared to where I take all my students, better understanding these life cycles, which are so predictive. They're astounding when I take people through their life looking at these dashas. So let's just make this simple for this one dissertation, where we're going to look at, if you go into the 17-year cycle of Mercury, we're going to be looking at where your Mercury is to give you the general gist of what you're going to be experiencing. So if you enter into Mercury's Dasha, now remember, whatever sign Mercury's in is going to give it flavor and meaning and strength or weakness. Depending if your Mercury is in Virgo or Gemini, it's going to be extremely strong and deliver some really powerful indications. That's great. So you're going to see that this is a powerful time if it's exalted or in its own sign. But if it's weak and debilitated, it may not deliver the effects that you expect. And its debilitation sign, of course, is Pisces. But let's begin. So if you enter into Mercury's Maha Dasha, and by the way, one last thing I need to make reference to, this is the Vimshottari Dasha system that I'm talking about. There are many Dasha systems. There's the Chara Dasha, there's the Ashatori, there's all these different ones. I can name off about 15, but this is the one that's used the most. So I use the Vimshottari Dasha system exclusively, unless I'm looking at Joni astrology, where we use the Chara Dasha system. But let's begin with Mercury. If you enter into Mercury's 17-year cycle, then when you're in Mercury, that's when the change really sets in. So all beginning dashas start with the subcycle being the same. So the subcycle, some call them Bhukti, some call it the Antara Dasha, but it's the second level down. And so when you enter Mercury, you're in Mercury. And this will be for about a couple of years. And then it will shift from Mercury to Mercury K2 and on Venus, Sun, Moon, on downward. But let's say you have Mercury in the first house and you just enter into Mercury's Maha Dasha. What is Mercury all about? Mercury's about intelligence, learning, traveling, communicating with people. It's all about the sharing of information. And that's going to become prevalent regardless of where it's placed in your chart. But if it's in the first house, this is so important to you. Everything about your life is changing. And you're becoming more aware of who you are, your talents, your gifts, because the first house is you, your communication skills. You may start writing, you may start teaching, you may start traveling more, but one way or another, it will be much more mentally stimulating time throughout the entire Mercury Maha Dasha. In the first house, this enables you to be more expressive with your Mercury, and especially even what sign it is in terms of how you express yourself. Mercury in Scorpio would be passionate. Mercury and Virgo would be more withdrawn. and insecure, Mercury in Gemini. So you see the signs flavor it, but the first house is going to be all the developments of what Mercury's about, and that means you developing your own skills in your own self in terms of how you communicate and pass on information. Now let's say your Mercury's in the second house and you enter into Mercury's Maha Dasha. Then this is going to mean a focus about your money matters. You start to organize your money more, and plus your voice gets more prominent and clearer. The way you communicate, the second house is our voice. Mercury is how we communicate and even process information in our minds. Our thinking process becomes clearer about what you want to say, how you want to express yourself, and also a look into organizing your money matters with Mercury being in the second house. How do you spend your money? How do you organize your money? What you do with your money? And coming together with family, communicating your ideas better with family members. The second house does deal with family as well as our voice and our finances. So if your Mercury sits in the third house, this is a great place for Mercury because the third house is relative to Mercury by the third sign being Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury loves to be in the third house. It gives you a better ability to express yourself. But I guarantee you, with Mercury in the third house and going into this dasha, you're going to start learning new things. There's going to be new education, more classes, more courses, more learning, and maybe even taking it to extent of teaching. Mercury in the third house, you have a love of travel, lots of travel, going back and forth many places. Throughout this Mercury Maha Dasha, you'll find that you'll have the travel bug, but mainly it can actually represent traveling in a car, on the roads. So you could even be doing more of a commute within this cycle. Another thing is you'll become closer and more connected with your brothers and sisters, especially the younger ones. But this will be a time when you take up new subjects, new studies, and expand your knowledge and your awareness, and your communication skills get more acute, especially writing. So if you have Mercury in the fourth house and you enter into Mercury's Maha Dasha, then this means you're going to be spending more time at home, connecting more with family, connecting more with your mother if she's still alive. And also you'll find that you don't want to travel as much with Mercury in the fourth. And a lot of education and learning will happen in the house, possibly taking online classes. That's what I would see with Mercury in the fourth here. Plus, Mercury in the fourth would mean you might do something with your home. You might even be looking for a new home. Something about a move when you go into a dasha and that dasha ruler is in the fourth house. It can definitely mean changes of residence or changes within the home, such as renovating, changing the way it looks, and possibly having meetings in your home, having group meetings where you come together and teach and learn, more so out of the house in the home. Okay, if you have Mercury in your fifth house, then this would mean that there's more of a focus around investments or giving advice to other people, connecting to other people in terms of these variables, investments. But if you're not into investments, then you become more creative. This could be the time you write that book. Remember, the fifth house deals with authorship, so you could start getting into your writing skills and developing that, writing a book. And if you have children, there's going to be a better communication with them. Possibly you begin teaching children, teaching your own children, maybe doing more schooling at home. But Mercury in the fifth house broadens your creative abilities and mind and makes you want to do things more for yourself, such as entrepreneurship, things like that. Great ideas come flooding in with Mercury, having Mercury in the fifth house and going into that dasha. Let's say you have Mercury in the 6th house and you go into Mercury's Maha Dasha. This means there's more of a reference around the workplace. You're sharing ideas with coworkers or employees. You're bringing up more people to come together in the workplace in alignment of better communications. And Mercury also being here would tell me that you are looking into expanding work and with people, and maybe even doing something more with health and healing, the food process, learning more about foods, what makes you healthy, learning more about health and healing, exercising more, things that make you healthier are your focus. And I always think about the 6th house in terms of pets. If you have the desire to adopt a pet, this could be a very, very good time for that. But most of all, you're learning more about health and healing, diet, nutrition, foods, how to better take care of yourself. And many times with Mercury here in the 6th house, you have a need and desire to help others, to do things to help others. That's what's going to be activated. So if your Mercury is in the 7th house, this is a time that you become more attuned to your partner. Your communications become more profound, deeper, connectedness, sharing ideas, talking things out. Mercury is how we relate. And if you have Mercury in the 7th house, chances are your partner has a great sense of humor. That's part of who you are and what you do. So you laugh, you share ideas, you connect more, you travel more with your partner. And if you don't have a partner, this could bring one in. And many times this can even mean some connections with others in business associations and agreements and contracts. Mercury can deal with written contracts in the 7th house, new business partners, and definitely a great sharing of ideas, coming together in a very congenial way with others with Mercury in your 7th house. So let's say Mercury is in your 8th house. Believe it or not, Mercury is the only planet that prospers. In other words, energetically, it's even better in the 8th house. And the 8th house deals with our research, analysis, getting to the core and the bottom of things. With Mercury here, you're going to be exploring the depths of so much. And your research is off the charts. You start discovering things that nobody knows, and because Mercury's the mind, the intellect, and you're digging deep and you're finding those answers, you're capable of doing this. Plus you might get into psychology, psychoanalysis, better understanding what makes you tick, what from the past causes certain behaviors so you can change them. Mercury in the 8th house can also get you into metaphysics, enhance your psychic intuitive abilities. This is what the 8th house is all about, change. And so you start thinking, how can I change my life to better it? That's what Mercury in the 8th house can do. So if you have Mercury in the 9th house, this is the house of spirituality, truth, and travel. And Mercury is an indicator for travel. Put it in the 9th, you're going to be traveling longer distances, going places, exploring, learning about different cultures. And it's about exploring the truth, finding your answers. The 9th house is truth and spirituality. Those are going to be the subjects that are going to be so deep and so of great interest during this time. But you could even go back to school during this time. And Mercury in the 9th house could even activate connections with your father, a deeper reference. If he's still around, you may find that you communicate better. You get to know him better. It goes deeper. You work with him. And Mercury in the 9th house will enable you to see the truth, to learn more, and something to do with higher education and discovering things about the law, maybe even learning about the law. That's possible as well. So let's talk about if you have Mercury in the 10th house. This is all about your work, your career, your social standing, your reputation. You're out there. You are being recognized for who you are and what you do. And Mercury being there means you could even, you reconnect better with your boss, or you become the boss. Your communication skills in the workplace are unrivaled by anyone, and you will be appreciated. You will get recognition for how you operate and communicate with people in your business, your work, and your reputation will go up, and possibly even a pay increase or a promotion. Or you might be building and making your own business. Mercury in the 10th does really well. People want to be their own boss with Mercury being there in the 10th house, and your business will take off. So if you have Mercury in your 11th house, and you go into Mercury's Maha Dasha, well, you're going to start making new friends, new associates. You bring people together in group context because of your great ability to merge thoughts and ideas and communicate so well with others. New friends will come into your life, and even some very influential people through your ability to connect and bring people together, group orientation. You are able to manage people extremely well. People feel you understand them, you connect with them, and that gives you great ability as well to make money, because the 11th house is the house of gains, but it's money you make through your work and your career. Large sums, you'll be successful. If you have Mercury in the 12th house, this is a time that you will travel to foreign lands and countries. This is what the 12th house deals with. But you will want to spend more time in solitude and alone, studying, learning, researching. The 12th house is solitude, but Mercury is the learning principle. And that's what you're doing. You're exploring, expanding awareness, consciousness, and educating yourself. Maybe even doing some deep studies, research. But things of the past will come up. The 12th house deals with the past, and you'll be able to process it, to think it out. And maybe even you will have some visitations from people from the other side through your dreams, because the 12th house is our dreams. Mercury is the thought process and communication to people through the dream state. But Mercury in the 12th house, it is a time to heal any issues that have been lingering from the past. This is a time you can process it, think it out, process it, talk it out, and heal it. So with that, I've covered the very basics of if you go into Mercury's Maha Dasha, and if and where you have Mercury according to what house it's in. Now remember, this is a vast subject. It's not just about what house that planet's in. It's what house it rules. It's what house it aspects. There's so much more to this, but I just wanted to give you a basic understanding of if you have Mercury in a particular house and you go into that dasha. These will be your experiences, but there'll be so much more when you grow to learn and understand the process of how these dashas operate. Remember, sometimes some of the things in our life may lay dormant till we go into these cycles. And when we do, it activates that planet, where it's located, what houses it rules, what planets aspect it, and even its dispositing planet. I can take you down all those levels, but don't forget the Maha Dasha's relationship to the sub-cycle, the Antara Dasha. Some call it Bhukti. That is so meaningful. And this is how we make our predictions using the dashas, the Maha Dasha and the Antara Dashas. And actually, there's so many more levels to it. But breaking it down just to the grand cycle and the sub-cycle is going to give you so much information and needed, wonderful information. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, sign up for my free newsletter. Go to my website, galacticcenter.org. And don't forget, if you want to take this to a much deeper level, sign up for my university. Go to University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.